Hi everyone. I know I haven't posted anything for more than 2 months, but it's because I'm currently in the UK doing a course, and with the move and starting the course, I just haven't had the time to think about making booktube videos. Also, I'm sharing a flat with two other people, and I just felt kind of weird talking to the camera in my room while they're in the house, so it's been pretty hard to find the time to film a video. That's also the reason behind this passport photo background, but it's the best I can do for now. So, I've also haven't been reading that much. I've been watching a lot of movies and catching up on TV shows, but I thought I'd try to get back into booktube by doing a tag. I was tagged to do the mid-year book freakout tag by Conrad at 7 Days at Sea. It was almost a month ago, I think. But I've also been recently tagged by Betsy from Bookish Betsy. I'll leave a link to both of their channels in the description. But thank you for tagging me, and let's get on with the questions. Question 1. Best book you read so far in 2017? The first one I want to mention is Zeroville by Steve Erickson. I know, surprise, surprise. If you've been watching my channel, you know how much I love this book. I also did a full-length review of it, so if you want to hear more of my thoughts about it, I'll leave a link in the description. But I'm still thinking about it, and I've been recommending it to all of my movie-loving friends, especially those who love 70s movies. And the second book I want to mention is The Little Red Chairs by Edna O'Brien. I first saw this book on Conrad's channel. He really loved it. I believe it was one of his favorite reads from last year, and I was really impressed by how much the author could fit into this very slim novel. It was a very powerful read. Her style is just beautiful, and it was also very harrowing at places. I wasn't actually expecting it to be this violent. And the third one I want to mention is Compass by Matthias Senard, even though I'm still kind of conflicted whether it's a good novel, but it took me a very long time to read, but I think it's worth it. The ideas that he puts forward and his writing style is just so impressive that I definitely recommend it. And I feel it's a very topical book too. So yeah, definitely one of the best books I've read this year. Question 2. Best sequel you've read so far in 2017? Well, I actually haven't read any series so far this year, but I did read the comic book miniseries Vision by Tom King. So I'm going to say Volume 2, Little Better Than a Beast. And I was really impressed by it. It's very philosophical and a bit melodramatic, but I really enjoyed it. Question 3. New release you haven't read yet but want to. For this I have two. The first one is Can You Hear Me by Elena Barbello. This was translated from the Italian by Alex Valenti. And this is set in a small community in northern Italy in 1978. I believe it's told from the perspective of a teenage boy who recounts the events in the town after a girl returns to this small community, who's sort of a catalyst to the following events. I believe it involves kidnapping and a murder. So I've seen this book around in bookshops, and I'm really intrigued to read it. The second book that I really want to read is Vernon Subutex 1. I'm not sure how you pronounce this, but it's by Virginie Despentes, and she's a French author, so it was translated by Frank Vin, and this is about a young guy who owns an infamous record shop in Paris, but he's struggling to pay the rent, and he loses his savings, so he basically ends out on the street. And then a word gets out that he owns the last recording of this famous musician who was also his benefactor. So there's a bunch of people that are trying to get to him and get this recording. So yeah, it sounds pretty good. I've heard that this author is pretty confrontational. I mean, judging from the author photo, it's gonna be an interesting ride. Question 4. Most anticipated release for the second half of the year. For this I chose Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I read her previous book, Everything I Never Told You. It was quite a popular book on booktube, and I really enjoyed it, but I'm interested to see what she does next. I believe this one is set in a suburban environment. It's about a perfect family who becomes fascinated with this mother and daughter that come to this suburban neighborhood and probably cause tension. I'm not sure, I don't really know much about it, but I'm interested to read it. Question 5. Biggest disappointment. That would be Universal Harvester by John Daniel. I really enjoyed his previous book, Wolf in White Van, but this one, I think the biggest problem was that it was wrongly marketed as a horror, and it's really not. And it makes it seem that it's gonna be about this mystery involving film, but it's not really. It's more of a story about grief, and it was okay, but at the end, I just felt kind of meh about it. I don't know. Question 6, biggest surprise. That would be a book that I read quite recently. It's called The Death of the Perfect Sentence by Rein Raud. It's an Estonian novel set in the 80s, shortly before the collapse of the Soviet Union. And what's interesting about it, that it looks at the events from various points of view. You get KGB agents, you get Swedish spies, you get pro-independence dissidents. It's kind of a spy story and a love story, and at some points, the author inserts himself into the story. I thought it was really well done, really interesting, and it's also available in English, so you may want to check it out. Question 7. Favorite new author? That would probably be Steve Erickson, although I've only read Zeroville, but I'm excited to explore more of his bibliography. Question 8. Newest fictional crush? I'll pass on that. Question 9. Newest favorite character? This is a hard one. Maybe Barney Panofsky from Barney's Version by Mordecai Rickler. He's basically this old, grumpy guy who just complains and rants about everything, and it's really amusing. But the book is also quite touching. Question 10. Book that made you cry. Well, I don't really cry while reading books, but a book that made me quite emotional at some points was War and Turpentine by Stefan Hetmans. He recounts his grandfather's life, his experiences during the First World War. Yeah, it was a very emotional read. Question 11, book that made you happy, Zeroville. Question 12, favorite book to film adaptation you saw this year. Well, it's not a new film, but I recently watched it and really enjoyed it, and it's The Assassination of Jesse James by the coward Robert Ford, directed by Andrew Dominic, and it was based on a novel by Ron Hansen. And it's a beautiful movie, very long, and it almost feels like you're watching a novel on screen. Beautiful cinematography, and yeah, yeah, I thought it was very faithful to the novel. Question 13. Favorite video you've done so far this year? Well, I really enjoyed doing my Man Booker International reviews. I'm really happy that I managed to read the whole shortlist and some of the long list. And I'm really happy with those review videos. I hope you enjoyed watching them. Question 14. Most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year? For this, I picked A Piece of the World by Christina Baker Klein. I like this simple but I think elegant cover. In the back, it's like a back of a canvas. I think it's really nice. And also The Idiot by Elif Batuman. Um, I bought this for my birthday, and I really like this colorful cover. It's very nice. I hope the book is good. Question 15. What books do you need to read by the end of the year? This is kind of a weird question because I don't have any books that I need to read by the end of the year. I just have books that I maybe want to get to by the end of the year. But I'm very much a mood reader. I don't like to put too much pressure on myself in terms of reading. And I don't see it as a competition either, but two books that I'd like to get to by the end of the year are The Seven Madmen by Roberto Arlt. This was recommended to me by a friend, and it's an Argentinian novel. It was translated from the Spanish by Nick Castor, and it says Remo Erdogan's Buenos Aires is a seething hive of hustlers, whores, scoundrels, and madmen. Directionless, possessed by paranoia, Erdogan clings to anything that can give his life meaning. But is that enough, or is the only appropriate response to reality insanity? So yeah, that sounds quite intriguing, and I love the cover. It's a very nice blue color. And the second book is Mendelssohn is on the Roof by Yuri Vale. And this is a Czech novel, and it was translated by Marie Vin. And this is set in during the Nazi occupation of Prague, and it begins when an SS officer is ordered to remove the statue of the Jewish composer Mendelssohn from the roof of the Music Academy in Prague. But he's not sure which one is Mendelssohn, so he removes the one with the biggest nose, which turns out to be Wagner. So this is quite a darkly comic look at the historical events of the time, but I'm sure it's also a very powerful and moving read. So I'm really looking forward to reading it. So those are all the questions, and I'm sure most of you have already done this tag, but if you want to, consider yourselves tagged, and hopefully I'll do another video soon. I've read Marlena by Julie Bunting, so I'm thinking of maybe doing a review of that. And for now, thank you for watching. See you next time.
I'll see you again in 20 5 years. Meanwhile,